Hello class, in this video we're going to be covering decimals in expanded form. This is where we are writing out each digit per the place value system. Now we've gone over the decimals in decimal expanded form, but we're going to compare the decimal in decimal expanded form as well as putting the decimals in fractional expanded form. So we're going to be referring back to 2 videos ago where we put the decimals in the place value system, okay, both in fractional and decimal form. But before we start the class, this video right now, I want you to pause the video, write your full heading, first name and last name, the date, mathematics, your period number, as well as your assignment name, which is called decimals in expanded form. Now that we have our heading down, let's look at a problem. So here we have, it says write 30 and 248 thousandths in expanded form 2 ways using decimals and then fractions. So remember, when we're writing this, we are doing this by place value. So we're taking each digit. So the 3 is in the tens place, so I'm going to do 3 times 10. And I'm putting that in parentheses because they need to be done together. Then I'm going to add the next digit. The next digit is a 0. That's in the ones place, so it'll be 0 times 1. The next digit is our decimal. The next digit is the decimal. So we don't write the decimal in expanded form. So we could just write our another plus here. The next digit here would be the 2. The 2 is in the tens form. So don't forget that that is 0.1. Right, for the tenths. And then the next digit is the 4, which is in our hundredths place. And our hundredths again is written as 0.01 or 100ths. And then the last digit is our 8. And then we have the 8 plus 0.001 or 1,000ths. I separate each one in parentheses so that I know that I have to do those first so it gets to the value of each number. Fractions is the same way for whole numbers. So when I do the 3 and the 0 for the 30, it's going to be the same as the decimals. So I'm going to have 3 times 10 plus the 0 times 1. Okay? Now what comes differently is our fractions. So the digits itself stay the same, so I'm going to end up having it 2 times. But for a fraction, instead of writing the tenth as 0.1, I'm writing it as 1 over 10. And then I close that parentheses. So on the next one, I keep the 4 there, but instead of writing 0.01, I'm going to write 1 over 100. And then I'm going to close that parentheses. And then I'm going to add the last one. The last digit is an 8. So instead of writing it as 0.001, I'm writing it as 1 over 1,000. And then I close the parentheses. So basically, when I'm writing in an expanded form, I'm just changing the decimal section. And instead of putting it in the decimal form, I'm putting it by how we write our place value in that fraction. I want you to pause this video now and copy what's on this slide. Now that we have this down, let's do another example. So this one's a little bit bigger, but again, it's the same exact process. So for our decimal, we would do 1 times 100. We've done the decimals before, plus 4 times 10 because the 4 is in the 10 spot, plus 5 times 1 because the 5 is in the ones place value. For the decimals, we're going to write them in our decimal place value format. So the first one we have is 0 times 0.1 plus the 5, which is in our hundredth spot, and the hundredths is written as 0.01. And then last but not least, we have the 6. The 6 is in our thousandths spot. spot. So we write it as 0.001 and we close that out. Now we've done this before, so I'm pretty confident that you are okay with the decimals. But let's look at the fractional part. Now for the fractional part, it's the same for the whole numbers. So when I look at that first one, it's 1 times 100, same as the decimals. The 4 is also a whole number, so it's the same as the decimals of 4 times 10. And the 5 also stays the same because that's also a whole number, 5 times 1. Now here's where the difference is. I'm changing this 0.1 to 1/10. So it's 1/10 or 1/10. The 5 gets carried with the multiplication, and instead of writing the hundredths this way, I'm writing it as 1/100. And last but not least is the 6. So the 6 times, and instead of writing it this way, I'm writing it 1/1000, because that's per our place value. So we have to remember the whole numbers stay the same. We're just replacing just how we write the decimals. So it's like we're changing these two. We're inverting these two. We're inverting these two. And then we're inverting these two. We're just writing it in a different format, but it means exactly the same thing. I want you to pause this video now and write down everything that's on this slide. Now that we have this down, let's do one more example. Oh my Lord, this is a big one. So I might actually have to do it 2 lines, but that's okay. So let's look at this. Again, the whole number stays the same for both of them. So the first one is in the thousands. So I'm going to do 1 times 1,000 plus, I had the 8. The 8 is in the hundred spot. So I'm doing 8 times 100. The 5 comes next. We want to stay in order. The 5 is in the 10 spot, so I'm going to write 5 times 10. Then the 6 comes. The 6 is in the 1 spot, so we know that it's 6 times 1. Now that's going to be the same as the fractions. Now let's look at the decimals. The decimal, the next digit is a 0, and that's in the 10th spot. So I have to do 0 times 0.1. I'm running out of room here and I really don't want to squish, so I'm going to start on the next line. Here's the key thing when you start on the next line to indicate that you are following the same way. You actually start that line with the operation. Because if I would have put the plus here and then started with the parentheses here, the state's going to think that you are doing a separate equation in which we're not. But if we put that operational sign first, they know that you are continuing on because you didn't have enough space. So the next digit after the 0 is the 4. The 4 is in the hundred spot, so I'm going to do 4 times 0.01. And the last digit of 3, which is in our thousand spot, so I'm going to do 4 times 0.001. So that's how we write that in our decimal format. Now let's see, how do we write this in our fraction format? So the fraction part is the same for the whole numbers. So I'm going to still do the 1 times, sorry, a little bit of a slip of the finger, but we have 1 times 1,000. The next digit is an 8. Remember, we want to go to order from left to right. So we have 8 times 100. The next digit is a 5, and that's in the 10 spot, so it's 5 times 10. And then we have our 6, which is in the 1 spot, so it's 6 times 1. Now that's the same in both the decimal and the fraction part. In the fractional part for the whole numbers. But now that we turn around and have our fractions, let's do this. The next digit is the 0, but instead of writing 0.1, I am multiplying it by 1/10. Okay? Again, I'm going to start on a new line, so I'm going to add my plus here, not over here, because I want them to know it's the same line. The next digit is a 4, and instead of writing it as 0.01, I'm writing it as 1/100. And then the last digit is a 3. So I have 3 times 1,000ths, but instead of writing it this way, I'm writing it over as 1 that over 1,000 or 1,000. Okay. And then I put my parentheses. So I close that out. I want you to pause this video now and write down everything that's on this slide. Now that we have this down, I want you to try some examples on your own. So I want you to write 674 and 50 thousandths and 12 and 470 thousandths in expanded form in both ways, the decimals and the fractions, just like we did here. I want you to do that for each one here. Don't forget to write down all the instructions and label your section homework. And you can also review this video as many times as you need to. And don't forget to write down your questions.